and montserrat. You like to be friendly, isn't it? Isn't that so? You like to know how to answer people. Am I correct? You like to know if you have a problem. Yes? Well, actually, it's yes and no. Before, in 87, I think, those people who would have left school, well, actually 88, those people who would have left school are given 2 more years of secondary education. Nick is working here.
I'll just say a few words.
Nick Waterman of the Centre for Curriculum and Staff Development at the Polytechnic has been coordinator of this programme based on Montserrat for the last 2 years. In September 1989, Montserrat's peace and calm was to be shattered forever. Off the coast of Africa, clouds were gathering, beginning to form into an awesome might of a hurricane so strong that on the measure of 1 to 5, by which hurricanes are normally recorded, it was a 5+. The hurricane, which was named Hugo by the scientists who were watching its growth, was the 8th to pass through the Caribbean that year. While most of the others had passed by the islands with little damage, this was not to be the case with Hurricane Hugo. Hugo hit Montserrat at midnight on the 17th of September 1989. Winds reaching estimated speeds of 300 miles per hour tore across the island, bringing with them torrential downpours of rain. Roofs were torn off, houses destroyed, and pieces of wood were driven through solid concrete. After the hurricane had passed, the devastation was total. Every single house had been damaged as Hugo tore across the island. Trees were uprooted and leafless, with many fruit trees and acres of crops destroyed. Roads were blocked and fallen trees, debris and destroyed vehicles. The only communication with the outside world was via amateur radio ham. Most of the schools were damaged, with roofs ripped off, doors and windows blown away, and walls blown down. Teachers were forced to hold classes outside, with little in the way of materials or furniture, often being interrupted by the heavy rain which frequently falls on Montserrat. The schooling of hundreds of children was in jeopardy. A solution had to be found. Local construction workers were busy with other urgent projects, and money was not available to pay a construction company to repair the schools. Wolverhampton Polytechnic and British government agencies discussed the problem and came up with the idea of an educational task force team. Sid Stevenson, in charge of construction training at Bilston Community College, was called in by Wolverhampton Polytechnic to help them to try and develop this idea. This led to a partnership between the two institutions. Sid began the work of putting together the team to go to the West Indies and rebuild the Montserrat schools. This unique team, the task force, was to be the first of its kind anywhere in the world. It would combine construction professionals, trainers and students together. It would produce a team capable of tackling the problems faced, whilst doing so training construction workers in real-life settings and in a foreign culture. The team was to be led by a management group composed of trainers from the Bilston Community College and other colleges. The difficult task of handling UK operations whilst the task force was abroad was given to Owen Fisher of the Wolverhampton Polytechnic. He began designing computer systems to run the project. Over Overall, management of Wolverhampton Polytechnic side of the project was a job for Terry Withington. He is in charge of Wolverhampton Polytechnic Department, which organises the training of teachers in Montserrat, and so had a large amount of experience of the island and the Caribbean in general. It was Terry who helped negotiate a contract with the British government. It was agreed to use £1.5 million of government aid to fund the project, so the work of recruiting the team could begin. Students from firms who were on day release at Bilston Community College and other training colleges were approached and asked if they wanted to be on the team. Supervisors were recruited from amongst the staff of the colleges and from the construction industry. For many, this was the chance of a lifetime to gain experience of new cultures, to travel and to work on an aid project at the same time. It was not to be missed. Over 600 people nationwide applied to the task force. These were then sorted until 93 remained who would travel to Montserrat. The task force was split into two groups. The first group of 50 assembled at Wolverhampton Polytechnic on the 12th of September 1990. They were briefed on what to expect of Montserrat. Temperatures would be in the high 80s most of the time, on steel roofs which could reach 130 Fahrenheit. Humidity would be over 90%. Accommodation was arranged in local houses and at a hotel in the capital, Plymouth. This hotel, the Flora Fountain, was where the task force would eat. It would also serve as a centre for the project community and for meetings and training sessions. These training sessions would continue throughout the project, as students were given academic as well as practical work. The team travelled down to Gatwick on the 13th of September. They boarded British Airways Flight 255 to the West Indies. The team flew 5,000 miles across the Atlantic, crossing through 4 time zones to arrive 8 hours later at Antigua's VC Bird Airport. From here, members transferred onto small aeroplanes for the 15-minute flight to Montserrat. The first group of students landed on Montserrat on the 13th of September 1990. They were met by members of the project management team who had flown out 2 weeks earlier. They were then transferred to their accommodation to acclimatise to the intense heat and humidity for a few days before starting work on the 17th of September 1990. The task force worked on 14 buildings across 5 schools. The work began at 7 o'clock each morning, working an 8-hour day. Work ranged from concreting and block laying to roofing and plumbing, enabling the trainees to improve and add to their skills. The first of the two teams, the task force was divided into, arrived back in Britain on the 20th of November 1990. It was replaced by a second team who finished on the 31st of January 1991. Materials were delayed in transit and often arrived with container seals broken and items missing. Whilst they were on the island, the task force suffered from dehydration, mosquito bites and tropical ulcers. Roofs and tools were superheated by the sun and they were advised to drink 2 gallons of water each day. This was to replace water sweated out whilst working. Despite all this, the project contract had been finished on time. 600 tons of material had been transported and 39,000 feet of roof had been replaced. Students had worked in their own time on building projects for local people. Amersham Home for Boys had been adopted by the task force. Many thousands of dollars were raised for it both in Montserrat and in the UK. As well as giving money, the task force worked on repairing the roof, kitchen and outbuildings.
Songs of your favorite singers, Genesis, Phil Collins, In2D. What are you slurping over here? Is it good? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sounds good to the last drop. 20 minutes till.
You know, Bob, the best part of waking up is Folgers in my cup.